You're listening to the Philosopher's Note on Integrative Nutrition. More wisdom in less time.
Hi, this is Brian. Welcome to the Philosopher's Notes on Integrative Nutrition. Feed Your Hunger for Health and Happiness by Joshua Rosenthal. As always, we'll start with a quote. "The more I observed human behavior, the more convinced I became that the key to health is understanding each person's individual needs, rather than following a set of predetermined rules. I saw plenty of evidence that having happy relationships, a fulfilling career, an exercise routine, and a spiritual practice are even more important to health than a daily diet." That's Joshua Rosenthal from Integrative Nutrition. So imagine a book that gives us an overview of the politics surrounding the food industry, the challenges of breaking our conditioned eating habits, plus a great look at the pros and cons of all the major diet nutrition plans out there, from the Atkins and South Beach diets to macrobiotics and raw food lifestyles. Then throw in tools to help reclaim our connection to our body's innate wisdom on what we should be eating and a comprehensive set of strategies on how we can nourish ourselves with not just the food we eat, but also with the primary food of loving relationships, meaningful work, physical exercise, and a deep spiritual practice. Mix all that together, and you have a very cool book, and it's called Integrative Nutrition. I was introduced to Joshua Rosenthal in his great book by my goddess Alexandra, who's currently enrolled at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition Joshua founded. You can learn more about that at integrativenutrition.com. I'm truly blown away by his wisdom, particularly the grounded way in which he shares the partial truths of various traditions while encouraging us to discover what works for us as we experiment with a set of 12 general guidelines. We're going to start with some startling health stats and then take a quick peek at the 12 steps of integrative nutrition. Then we'll explore some of my favorite big ideas on how to bring them to life. If you're interested in learning more about how to best nourish your and your family's body and mind and soul, I highly recommend you get the book. It's literally packed with dozens of big ideas and simply rocks. With that, we shall start with the first big idea, startling health stats. Did you know that, quote, in 2004, 66% of Americans were overweight or obese? We spend an exorbitant amount of money on medications and operations, while virtually nothing is spent on prevention, education, and holistic health, end quote. Quote, overweight people now outnumber undernourished people in the world. And quote, the average American now consumes more than 100 pounds of sugar and sweeteners per year. In contrast, Americans consume an average of 8 pounds of broccoli. End quote. Yikes. As Joshua says, the ultimate question we need to be asking ourselves is, what would it take to have a country full of healthy, happy people? The first thing we may want to consider is the Integrative Nutrition Plan, 12 steps. That's the next big idea. Number 1, drink more water. Number 2, practice cooking. Number 3, increase whole grains. Number 4, increase sweet vegetables. Number 5, increase leafy green vegetables. Number 6, experiment with protein. Number 7, eat less meat, dairy, sugar, and chemicalized artificial junk foods. Consume less coffee, alcohol, and tobacco. Number 8, develop easy and reliable habits to nurture the body. Number 9, have healthy relationships that support you. Number 10, find physical activity you enjoy and do it regularly. Number 11, find work you love or a way to love the work you have. And number 12, develop a spiritual practice. You'll want to get the book for all the juicy details on the above, but for now, remember this, quote, I say choose the things that you most want to do and leave the hardest ones for later. As you start doing the easier ones, your body's energy will kick in, and you will pick up momentum. You will then find yourself doing the hardest things with greater ease because you're not starting from zero. Know that each change you make has a tremendous impact on your present and your future, end quote. So the next big idea is the Integrative Nutrition Food Pyramid. And if you're looking at the PDF, I have a fancy little image in there from Integrative Nutrition. It's a beautiful image, actually, that takes the USDA food pyramid and kind of adapts it in an integrative model. It's pretty cool. And on the outside circle encompassing the pyramid are four primary foods: spirituality, career, physical activity, and relationships, which is phenomenal to think of the fact that we have primary foods vis-a-vis secondary foods that we ingest, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. And then within that circle, we have the grains, vegetables, fruits, oils, proteins, and water that we want to consume in relative proportions. But check out the PDF for that image, and we will move on to the next big idea, which is the basics are simple. Quote, in spite of the enormous amount of confusing and contradictory information that regularly floods the world of nutrition, the basics are simple. Most people would be much better off consuming less meat, milk, sugar, chemicalized artificial junk food, alcohol, caffeine, and tobacco, and increasing their consumption of water, whole grains, and vegetables, especially dark leafy greens, end quote. I love the fundamentals. After presenting the 12 steps of the Integrative Nutrition Plan in detail, Joshua has a chapter on foods to avoid or minimize. Great stuff. One of his big ideas as we optimize our diet is to crowd out the less healthy stuff by focusing on the positive. Rather than try to get rid of some pesky item, focus on adding something we know is great for us. As we do that, we tend to naturally and surprisingly quickly crowd out the bad stuff. It's a pretty cool idea. So, what's the number one thing your highest self would love to add to your diet? Not a should, but you're kind of excited about it. It's number one thing. And is today a good day to start developing that habit? It always seems to be to me. All right, the next big idea is the 90-10 diet. Quote, since I'm not very much into the rules, this diet has only one rule, and even that rule is flexible. The rule is that 90% of the time you eat what is healthy for you, and 10% of the time you eat whatever you feel like eating, end quote. I get a big smile even reading that. Joshua presents his 90-10 diet, is what he calls it, in the beginning of the book after he's gone through the pros and cons of all the leading diets out there. Absolutely love it. I don't know about you, but I've tended to get extreme, all caps, whether it's when I became a fruitarian for a month, or raw for a bit longer, or vegan for a few years. There's something magical about chillaxing a bit into the 90-10 idea. I like that a lot. How about you? Eat well 90% of the time, eat whatever you feel like 10% of the time. 90-10 diet. The next big idea is you drinking water. Quote, the body is 75% water, so it makes sense that this essential fluid must be continually replenished. We can go for a month without food, but we can live only 2 or 3 days without water. Considering the proven impact of water on human health, it amazes me that people remain so unaware and uneducated about this subject. They spend most of their lives dehydrated, needlessly suffering from low energy, cravings, and symptoms, not realizing they could feel much better by merely drinking more water. End quote. You drinking plenty of water? This is one of the quickest and easiest ways to boost our energy. The amount you need to drink is going to depend on a number of factors, including your size, physical activity, diet, etc. But check in, and if you know you're not getting enough, start filling up. Next big idea is primary food. Quote, primary food is more than what is on your plate. Healthy relationships, regular physical activity, a fulfilling career, and a spiritual practice can fill your soul and satisfy your hunger for life. When primary food is balanced and satiating, your life feeds you, making what you eat secondary. End quote. I absolutely love that. And one of my favorite concepts in Joshua's teachings is the idea that we have what he calls primary foods and secondary foods. Interestingly, what we eat is a secondary food to the 4 forms of primary foods: relationships, career, spirituality, physical activity, that either nourish or deplete us. As Joshua says, quote, sometimes we are fed not by food, but by the energy in our lives. These moments and feelings demonstrate that everything is food. We take in thousands of experiences of life that can fulfill us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We hunger for play, fun, touch, romance, intimacy, love, achievement, success, art, music, self-expression, leadership, excitement, adventure, and spirituality. All of these elements are essential forms of nourishment. The extent to which we are able to incorporate them determines how enjoyable and worthwhile our lives feel. End quote. Again, I love this idea of primary foods so much. I say we take a quick peek at some big ideas from all four of the primary foods: spirituality, relationships, exercise, and career. So here we go. Next big idea. Time to clean out your friendship closet. Quote, I invite you to look at your relationships the same way people look at their wardrobes. You've probably kept many clothes hanging in your closet that you haven't worn for years. Maybe you're hoping they'll come back into style, or maybe they don't quite fit, but you keep them in the back for sentimental reasons. It's the same with friends. If you think of everyone you know, chances are you will find at least a few people from your past who don't really belong in your present. In fact, if you're honest with yourself, you'll admit you find their company draining. But you keep them in your wardrobe of friends even if they have little to offer in return. Perhaps they are smokers, drinkers, or drug users, and you've moved on from that scene. They could be past lovers who keep hanging around, or people whose lives are always in crisis, requiring large amounts of time or energy from you, never to return the favor. Remember, you're their friend, not their therapist. End quote. So, how's your friendship closet looking? Is it time to move some of your doesn't quite fit you or not quite your style anymore items out, and maybe even go on a little shopping spree for some new friends? As you think about that, we'll move on to the next big idea. Do you love your work? Quote, in today's society, most of us spend 8 to 10 hours a day at work and very little time with our loved ones. While we are choosy about who we relate with intimately, we spend years doing work we can't stand, and that may be completely opposed to our personal values. Think about it for a moment. We have 24 hours each day. We sleep for 8 hours, work for 8 to 10 hours, and have 6 to 8 hours left for other activities. More than half our waking hours is spent working, even more if we include commuting. Work is a huge part of our daily routine, yet how many of us really enjoy it? How many of us complain constantly about what we do, but feel powerless to change it? This feeling of helplessness is not a nourishing lifestyle. End quote. Our career is clearly one of our most important primary foods. It's incredibly important that we love what we do if we want to be living a vibrant life. If you're not loving your work, you'll get 10 times, maybe even 1,000 times the value of this book just by doing the exercises he has in this section. I've got to say, you got to love a nutrition book that gives you some really cool exercises on, as he says, finding the work you love and loving the work you find. For now, we're going to look at the importance of exercise. Moving on to the next big idea, people need to exercise. Quote, people need to exercise. Our bodies thrive on movement and quickly degenerate without it. The challenge is to find the types of exercise you enjoy most and then build them into your life. Physical activity can take simple and modest forms like getting off the subway or bus one stop earlier or walking to your destination. It can be taking the stairs instead of the elevator to your office or destination. It can be taking your dog for a walk or your children to the park. A 30-minute brisk walk every day may be all you need to keep yourself in shape. It's good to find something you can do every day without altering your schedule too much. Making physical activity a simple, daily habit greatly increases your chances of staying active. End quote. Amen. I'm a huge exercise activity evangelist, and this makes me think of Dan Millman. You can see the notes on Body, Mind, Mastery, and Sonya Mursky, who's one of the leading positive psychologists who scientifically articulates the how of happiness. You can see the notes on the book of the same name. First, Dan Millman. He says, quote, remember that vigor and vitality is a matter of activity, not necessarily formal exercise. I'm always amazed to see cars driving around and around, looking for the closest space to the health club so they can get on a treadmill and walk 3 miles. Park the car at the farthest point from the store. Use the stairs instead of the escalator or elevator. Carry your groceries, garden, and do other activities that keep you moving. You will add more years to your life and more life to your years. End quote. And now Sonya Mursky, she says, quote, an impressive study of physical activity was published in the Archives of Internal Medicine in 1999. The researchers recruited men and women 50 years old and over, all of them suffering from clinical depression, and divided them randomly into 3 groups. The first group was assigned to 4 months of aerobic exercise, the second group to 4 months of antidepressant medication, Zoloft, and the third group to both. The assigned exercise involved 3 supervised 45-minute sessions per week of cycling or walking and jogging at moderate to high intensity. Remarkably, by the end of the 4-month intervention period, all 3 groups had experienced their depressions lift and reported fewer dysfunctional attitudes and increased happiness and self-esteem. Aerobic exercise was just as effective at treating depression as was Zoloft, or as a combination of exercise and Zoloft. Yet exercise is a lot less expensive and usually with a lot less side effects apart from soreness. Perhaps even more remarkably, 6 months later, participants who had remitted or recovered from their depressions were less likely to relapse if they had been in the exercise group 6 months ago than if they had been in the medication group, end quote. That's huge. We talk about that some more in the How of Happiness. Exercise, exercise, exercise. It's big. You couldn't pay me enough to stop exercising. No way. How about you? Are you exercising? How can you boost your activity level today? It doesn't need to be huge. Just go for a walk consistently or turn it up a few more notches if you're feeling it. But move, pretty please. People need to exercise. All right, the next big idea is a microscopic part of the cosmos. Quote, for me, spirituality means seeing myself as a microscopic part of the cosmos. I believe that whatever force makes the day turn into night and night turn into day and winter become spring and fall become winter, whatever keeps all the stars and planets going around perfectly in their orbits, creates new buds in spring and moves old leaves to drop away in autumn, can surely look after this one little life of mine. So I take steps to keep myself in harmony with the order of the universe. I eat naturally grown foods, spend time outside, rise when it is light, sleep when it is dark, and adjust my activity level according to the season of the year. By doing this, I tend to increasingly be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, just like all the other major elements in the universe. End quote. Amen. That's beautiful. Reminds me of Wayne Dyer's wisdom that if we want to be good spiritual beings, first we need to be good animals. So are you in harmony with the order of the universe? What can you do to get more harmonized? Eat more naturally grown foods, rise with the sun, rest at night, chillax more during the winter? Whatever it is, here's to being a happy, synchronized, microscopic part of the universe and celebrating the joys and synchronicities that arise from that harmony. Which leads us to the final big idea, fitting in versus fitting out. Quote, escaping the matrix is a key step to creating true health and happiness. Start by noticing the places in your life where you feel inauthentic. Are there certain people who you have difficulty expressing your true self around? In what circumstances do you try to fit into other people's expectations? Without self-judgment, begin to notice when and where this occurs, and start building the confidence to express your true self at all times, to embrace what makes you different from the norm. By loving yourself completely, you will reach a new height of health that no food could ever give you. And by expressing your authentic self, your life force will soar. Your heart will open, and the world will never look the same. End quote. That's from a section all about fitting in versus fitting out, and the need to lean to the latter. That'd be fitting out. I love it. We talk about this all the time, and I love the fact, again, that a nutrition expert is telling us just how important our own authentic expression is to our well-being and life force. Vernon Howard, you can see the notes on the power of your supermind, captures it this way. He says, quote, never sacrifice your inner integrity to anyone, anytime, anywhere. And he says, how true are you to yourself? That is the degree of your contentment, end quote. So how true are you to yourself? Can you practice being more and more authentic as you honor the primary and secondary foods you consume and optimize your rockin' life? Good answer. Let's rock that. That's this note, Integrative Nutrition. I'm going to share a little bit on Joshua Rosenthal, suggest a few other notes you might enjoy, and then share some great quotes from the sidebar. First, Joshua Rosenthal. He's the founder, director, and primary teacher of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in New York City. He is a highly trained leader with a Master's of Science degree in education, specializing in counseling. With more than 25 years of experience in the fields of whole foods, personal coaching, curriculum development, teaching, and nutritional counseling, he is a highly sensitive healer whose enthusiasm shines through in all his work. His simple approach allows people to quickly and successfully reach new levels of happiness, and you can learn more about him and his great school at integrativenutrition.com. Highly recommend you check that out and get the book if you're feeling it. If you like this note, I think you'll also like a book called Thrive, my philosopher's notes on that, and Strength for Life, Mastery, and the How of Happiness, and the Power of Your Supermind, and pretty much every other note we have, as always. All right, so here's some quotes from the sidebar. My father has a bumper sticker on the back of his car that says, "This is your life, not a dress rehearsal. Now is the time to take action toward accomplishing whatever dreams, ideas, or aspirations may be lingering in the back of your mind." The more we bring our individual lives into alignment with the whole of existence, the more we feel nourished and at peace. Getting off this treadmill requires a willingness to stand on our own and disregard others' opinions. I am a great believer in encouraging people to slow down. Courage is also required to stand up and say, "Okay, everyone, you can pass me on the fast track to success. I've tasted it, understood it, and I am no longer interested in keeping up because I now know that the price is too high. I want to stay true to myself and I want to enjoy myself. These are my priorities." Finding work you love is essential to living a healthy, balanced life. We don't realize the extent to which our lives would improve if we were doing work we loved. You can eat all the broccoli and brown rice in the world, but if you feel isolated and lonely, you are not going to be living at full capacity. If you are not getting the primary food you need, eating all the food in the world won't satisfy your hunger. The food we take into our mouth goes into our stomach, where it gets digested and eventually assimilates into the bloodstream. Our blood is what creates our cells, our tissues, our organs, our skin, our hair, our brains, and even our thoughts and feelings. We are, at our most basic level, walking food. I have been working in the field of nutrition for more than 25 years, and what I've learned is that there is probably no one right way of eating. Nutrition is a funny science. It's the only field where people can scientifically prove opposing theories and still be right. People are gaining weight today because they eat too much chemicalized, artificial junk food and consume too much caffeine, sugar, nicotine, and alcohol. It's not the carbohydrates. And the final quote is, "Health is a vehicle, not a destination." Well, there you go. There's a quick look at one of my new favorite books, Integrative Nutrition. It's absolutely fantastic, and we didn't even talk about the fact that the book has, a diet plan and recipes and all kinds of other great stuff. So if you felt some resonance with this book, I highly recommend it. Really think you'll enjoy it, and look forward to sharing more wisdom with you soon. Trust you're doing great, and have an awesome day.
We hope you enjoyed this Philosopher's Note. Please go to www.philosophersnotes.com to download more.